Hey everybody, this is Derek, aka No One on YouTube. Thank you for clicking on my video. And I saw a little documentary that's on the Rock Theory channel, and it's a little documentary, fan made, I suppose. And it's called The Brain Behind Nightwish, Tuomas Holopainen. So that's what I'm gonna react to, and I haven't seen this. I don't know if any one of the Nightwish army has seen this. As a matter of fact, let me just kind of like look in the comments just very quickly. So it says 2 words, absolute genius. Now I don't know if it's probably referencing Tuomas, not Tomas, Tuomas. Okay, so let me see. I don't recognize any of these names in here that are commenting. I don't see any of like the regular Nightwish army people or floor worlders for that matter. Okay. Kelsey the Lamentation I recognize. And he put a gem and a star emoji, so I guess he liked it. Trying to look like, really? Like, who are these people? I guess they're Nightwish fans, but I don't recognize any of these people. Okay. Well, I didn't see any negative comments, so let's go ahead and let me put my headphones on. And as you know, I'm trying to remember who was the first person that dubbed Tuomas the metal Mozart. But needless to say, it's stuck for the past so many years. So let's take a look at this documentary on our beloved metal Mozart.
Through his work with Nightwish, his writing relied on structured composition, emphasizing orchestral elements within a modern metal framework. As the band's audience expanded internationally, his role in defining the genre became increasingly visible. This is the story of Tuomas Holopainen.
It's not Thomas. Oh my God. Is that what he just said?
This is the story of Tuomas Holopainen.
Why doesn't anybody ever see the U? There is a U in his name. It's not Thomas. It's not Tomas. It's Tuomas. Just like if you see the word duo, D-U-O, duo. This is T-U-O, tuo, Tuomas. And the emphasis is not on mas. So it's not like, it's like pronouncing like Christmas. You don't say Christmas. So it's Tuomas, Christmas, Tuomas. I don't understand why that's so difficult for people. And it gets on my nerves because if you're going to make a documentary on something, at least try to do your homework and pronounce things properly. But anyways, let's just keep on going.
Tuomas was born on December 25th, 1976, in the small Finnish town of Kitee. The town's quiet structure and close community shaped his early years. Classical music was frequently played at home, and from an early age, he grew accustomed to orchestral sound palettes. Although his family did not pursue music professionally, his environment allowed him to develop a natural connection to structured, melodic forms. Around the age of 7, Tuomas began formal piano lessons through the local music school system. Finland's public music education model emphasized discipline and theory, giving students a strong technical base. His studies soon expanded to include clarinet and foundational music theory. These lessons introduced him to harmony, rhythm, and structured notation, forming the technical groundwork he relied on throughout his later career. His training followed a consistent schedule, reinforcing his ability to analyze music rather than only play it. As he moved into his early teens, he became increasingly interested in orchestral composition. Traditional piano studies continued, but his attention shifted toward understanding how larger arrangements were constructed. This interest eventually led him toward film music. Tuomas focused on how themes were developed, how sections transitioned, and how orchestral layers created atmosphere. These observations helped him break away from instrument-specific thinking and see music as an interconnected structure. A defining moment in his early life came in 1993, when he traveled to the United States for a one-year high school exchange program in Kansas. During this period, he was exposed to a broader range of music than he had access to in Finland. He participated in orchestra classes, experienced ensemble rehearsals with larger groups, and encountered contemporary film scores more directly. The year abroad gave him practical insight into how orchestral parts functioned together, how arrangements were executed in rehearsal settings, and how scoring techniques were applied in modern compositions. When he returned to Finland in 1994, his musical direction had become clearer. He began keeping structured notebooks filled with melodic themes, chord progressions, and rhythmic ideas. These notebooks were not casual sketches, but organized attempts to explore and refine musical concepts. They became part of his regular routine and formed an early archive of material he would later revisit. This habit of documenting ideas consistently became one of the defining aspects of his creative process. In the years that followed, Holopainen played with several local bands. The projects differed in style. Some focused on rock, others on acoustic arrangements, but none aligned fully with the sound he envisioned. These experiences, however, provided practical knowledge about ensemble performance, rehearsal discipline, and adapting parts for different instrument combinations. While useful, the bands offered a contrast that pushed him further toward developing a project built around his own ideas rather than fitting into an existing framework. By the mid-1990s, Holopainen's musical identity had taken shape. He had a classical foundation, a growing interest in atmospheric and cinematic textures, and first-hand experience working with orchestral ensembles during his year in the United States. Combining these elements led him toward the idea of creating a project that merged acoustic elements with the scale and emotional depth of film-influenced composition. This period formed the conceptual base that would guide his transition into the next stage of his career, where these early ideas would begin to evolve into structured, professionally recorded work. After returning to Finland in 1994, Tuomas settled into a calmer and more predictable daily routine. While continuing his education, most of his time was spent at home, structured around individual activities rather than public or professional engagements.
Listen, this is getting on my nerves, and I have to leave a comment on here. And sorry that I'm doing this like as I'm recording, but you know what? It's really getting on my nerves that bad. Okay, so I put on here, his name is not Tuomas. It's Tuomas. Tuo. Tuo. Anyways, let me keep on going.
This period was not defined by live performances or recording sessions, but by personal work and private routines. His days were divided between music-related work, reading, and time spent alone. Music creation during these years remained a solitary process. His work did not move toward a defined goal such as an album, arrangement, or recording plan. Melodic ideas and harmonic structures were examined on their own terms. Material that did not function as intended was discarded without being archived, while only selected ideas were kept for further development. This approach gradually made his writing process more selective and focused. He was cautious about sharing his music during this time, most of what he wrote stayed within his personal workspace. On occasion, some ideas were played in informal settings, but these moments did not develop into ongoing group activity. The purpose was not performance, but observation.
Is that his wife? Because I don't think I've ever seen his wife, and if I have, I don't remember what she looks like, but she's beautiful, whoever that is, and I love the color of the hair.
Seeing how written material translated into sound outside of the piano. Reading formed a consistent part of his daily life alongside music. Fantasy literature was among the genres he followed. In addition, topics related to natural sciences and evolutionary theory were part of his broader reading interests. In later interviews, Tuomas has described a broader interest in learning about ideas beyond music, including topics related to natural history. This interest was described not as an academic pursuit, but as part of a personal curiosity and a desire to learn beyond music. Comic books were another regular part of his free time. Disney comics, particularly the Scrooge McDuck stories written by Don Rosa, were among the material he followed closely. These stories stood out to him for their long-form narratives and structured chronology. This interest remained separate from his musical work and continued purely as a reading habit. Cinema also played a role in how he spent his time away from music. His viewing habits leaned toward films with strong narrative structure and atmosphere. Disney films and story-driven productions were among the content he followed. These films were approached as viewer experiences rather than as technical or professional references. Over time, a clear daily framework took shape. Music writing, reading, and film viewing progressed as separate activities, each occupying its own place within his routine. Together, they formed a sustainable structure for working alone over extended periods. By the mid-1990s, the limitations of this independent approach became more apparent. While a substantial amount of material had been developed, it was increasingly clear that further progress would require a different working environment. This realization laid the groundwork for the next stage, although no immediate change occurred at this point. In 1996, Tuomas Holopainen began taking steps that moved his work beyond private writing and informal rehearsal. After a period of acoustic experimentation, he started preparing material intended specifically for recording. These compositions were no longer treated as sketches or tests, but as pieces meant to be documented in a fixed form. This shift marked the beginning of a transition from personal practice into structured production. The first recording sessions took place in modest studio conditions. The goal was not polish or commercial presentation, but clarity, capturing arrangements accurately enough to evaluate structure, pacing, and vocal placement. These early sessions established a working method that combined keyboard-driven composition with layered instrumentation. The recording served as reference material rather than finished releases, allowing adjustments to be made before committing to larger sessions. During this period, the lineup solidified into a functioning recording group. Tuomas worked closely with vocalist Tarja Turunen and guitarist Emppu Vuorinen.
Oh my God, it's not Tarja, it's Tarja.
Tuomas worked closely with vocalist Tarja Turunen and
All right. I know I have OCD, and that's what it's bothering. It's bothering my OCD because I know how to properly pronounce the majority of these names. Anyways, just for everybody else's knowledge, if this is your first time being introduced to Nightwish, or if you don't know them that well, yeah, her name is not Tarja.
guitarist Emppu Vuorinen, while additional musicians were brought in to complete rhythm and percussion roles for studio work. Each member's role was defined by the requirements of the compositions, rather than by fixed band identities. The focus remained on completing recordings, rather than developing a public-facing group image.
You know what? Is this like AI, the voice? Is this like not a real human voiceover? That's possible why there's like the mispronunciations. I didn't think about that until literally just now. I don't know why people, if they're gonna put something together, why they don't use their own voice. I don't like AI stuff. I mean, with this, you know, because if it's gonna come from you, then we need to hear it from you, you know?
By early 1997, preparation began for a full-length album. Recording sessions were scheduled with the intention of producing a complete release rather than isolated tracks. The material reflected a departure from the earlier acoustic emphasis, incorporating electric guitars, percussion, and broader arrangements. These sessions required decisions about song order, arrangement consistency, and final structure. Choices that marked a clear step into professional production. Later that year, the album Angels Fall First was recorded and completed. The process involved multiple studio sessions and collaboration with a producer to finalize the sound. The release introduced the project under the name NIGHTWISH and established a public identity for the work. While modest in scope, the album represented the first time Tuomas's compositions were formally released to an audience. Following the album's completion, promotional and logistical steps were taken to support its release. These included label coordination and preparation for limited live performances. The music was no longer confined to studio evaluation. It now existed as a finished product available for distribution. This change required adapting arrangements for performance while keeping them aligned with the recorded versions. The release of Angels Fall First also led to adjustments in how new material was written. Compositions developed after the album took into account recording constraints and performance feasibility from the outset. Writing sessions increasingly assumed that pieces would be recorded and performed rather than remaining purely conceptual. By the end of 1997, work had already begun on new material intended for a second album. Studio planning, rehearsal scheduling, and compositional development overlapped as the project moved forward. The foundation established through the first release made it possible to approach subsequent recordings with clearer expectations and defined objectives. This period concluded with the project fully transitioned into professional music production. Recording, release preparation, and structured collaboration had replaced informal experimentation. The groundwork was set for more extensive studio work to follow, marking the end of the initial entry into recorded and released material. Following the initial album release and early performances, the internal structure of NIGHTWISH entered a period of reassessment. As activity increased, the informal working model used during the early recording phase proved insufficient. Decisions regarding scheduling, representation, and long-term direction required clearer authority and coordination. During this period, Tuomas Holopainen assumed responsibility for organizing compositional planning and defining how material would be developed moving forward. As new albums were prepared and released in the years that followed, differences emerged regarding the management of the band's public and professional operations. Touring schedules, media obligations, and contractual matters placed increasing pressure on internal communication. These issues were not related to musical ability, but to expectations surrounding workload distribution, decision-making authority, and external representation. By the early 2000s, these differences had become more pronounced. Conflicting views developed between band members regarding how the project should be managed and who should speak on its behalf in professional contexts. Attempts were made to continue working within the existing structure, but the underlying disagreements remained unresolved.
So I'm wondering if he is including Sammy, the original bassist, because I believe, I don't know if Sammy quit or if he was let go, but I know it was because of musical differences from what I've been told. And then Marco Hietala came in and replaced him. So, but they keep showing videos and footage of Tarja, and so I'm wondering if that's kind of what he's referring to right now. Although I don't think Tarja ever had, like, I don't think she ever gave any opposition to Tuomas about the direction of the band. Granted, she wanted to do solo stuff, and there was an issue with that for Tuomas, but
The situation reached a critical point during the touring cycle that followed the Once album. After the completion of the final show of that tour in 2005, a decision was taken to remove vocalist Tarja Turunen from the band. The decision was communicated through an open letter addressed to her, which was subsequently made public. Tuomas Holopainen was directly involved in the drafting and delivery of this statement, taking responsibility for formally expressing the band's position. The removal of
listen, all this stuff happened 20 plus years ago. It's said and done, but and it's none of my business because I wasn't there and I'm not part of the band or anything like that. I wasn't even a fan at that time. But what I can say is for anybody to do that to a coworker in any business, but in the music industry too, to it's one thing to write a letter of dismissal to somebody, but then to make it an open letter on the internet, um, which we can still read to this day because it's still on the internet. Once you put something on the internet, it doesn't go away. And we can still look it up and read it and go, man, that was harsh and messed up. But anyways, I'm sure there has to be some kind of regret from Tuomas on how it was done. That's just my opinion. He's never come out and talked about it openly, of his feelings of that, except for like the backlash that he got from the way it was done. And he wrote The Poet and the Pendulum about that. But, anyways.
a long-standing member required immediate structural changes. Scheduled commitments were canceled or adjusted, and plans for future recordings were placed on hold while the lineup was reconsidered. The band entered a transitional period focused on stabilizing its internal framework before resuming activity. In 2006, the selection process for a new vocalist began. This process involved auditions and internal evaluations rather than public announcements. The goal was to establish a working relationship compatible with the existing compositional structure and future touring demands. Annette Olzon was selected later that year, marking a significant shift in the band's lineup and public identity. The first album recorded with the new lineup, Dark Passion Play, was released in 2007. The recording process reflected a deliberate effort to move forward without revisiting previous internal disputes.
I mean, musically, what's the word? It progressed musically. I mean, the music in Dark Passion Play and the Imaginarium albums are absolutely amazing.
The album's completion re-established a functioning production cycle and allowed postponed touring plans to resume. Despite the successful release, internal adjustments continued. Differences in working style and long-term expectations persisted within the group. In 2012, during an ongoing tour, Annette Olzon departed from the band. The separation occurred abruptly.
Okay, I was going to say she did not depart.
Annette Olzon departed from the band. The separation occurred abruptly, requiring immediate logistical decisions to fulfill remaining performance obligations. Floor Jansen was brought.
Okay, so Annette was fired. She was pregnant. She was also very sick. And but even before that, there is a documentary, the Learn the Set List in 48 Hours, when Floor first came into the band. Marco and Troy were very vocal in that documentary of the vibe in the band during the Imaginarium tour, that it was not good. It was very negative. There was a negative spirit, and they weren't happy. But they're going to get into Floor, and by the way, it's Floor Jansen, not Jansen. But when Floor came in, That's why when you watch the Wacken Open Air, so it's not Wacken either, but when you watch the Wacken Open Air performance of 2013, um, you'll see the guys in the band smiling and they're so happy because Floor came in and number one finished the Imaginarium tour for them, but that they realized that she was the perfect fit because she was able to do operatics like Daria, but she was also able to do like pop style like Annette, but she was also able to do rock metal style like because she was still in revamp when she joined. So
Brought in as a temporary replacement for the remainder of the tour, and was later confirmed as a permanent member. This change finalized a new lineup structure that remained in place afterward. By the end of this period, Nightwish had undergone multiple structural disruptions.
and also he didn't bring out, but at the same time that Floriansen became official, Troy Donockley became an official member as well. And he became the multi-instrumentalist. So you guys see him playing the Ellen pipes, which are the Irish bagpipes. He plays the bazooka. He plays the ebo guitar. He plays acoustic guitars. He plays what else? Irish tin whistles and low whistles and all of these things. So he's just, I mean, he can pretty much play everything.
Each requiring direct intervention and decision-making. Tuomas Holopainen remained responsible for maintaining continuity through these transitions, ensuring that recording and touring commitments could proceed despite internal change. The band emerged from this phase with a stabilized lineup and a revised internal framework, bringing this period of restructuring to a close.
Well, I wouldn't say to a close because then Marco left. And then he also didn't get into like if he's talking about like members leaving, uh, uh, drummer Yuka had to step aside from being drummer and just get into management because of his insomnia and health reasons. So Kai Hato from Wintersun came in, so he didn't bring out that either. And then Marco left, and then Wintersun's bassist Yuka Koskinen, who's also in the band. Oh my God, my brain just like literally just went out. Crown Shift. So anyways, he's not mentioning any of that. But let's see, because there's only a few more minutes left here, and he's really not getting into like compositions that Tuomas did. Like he didn't get into Ghost Love Score. He didn't get into The Poet and the Pendulum. And now in Floor's era, there was The Greatest Show on Earth. I mean, those are like three masterpieces of Tuomas. And then, not even to mention, on the second CD of the Human Nature album, where it was full classical piece, full classical. So, but anyways, let's keep on going.
After the lineup stabilized with Floor Jansen as vocalist, Tuomas returned to album production with a clearly defined working structure. Writing for the next release began with material developed specifically for studio recording rather than adaptation from live arrangements. This approach led into the creation of Endless Form's Most Beautiful, released in 2015. The album marked a documented thematic focus on evolution and natural history. Its title was taken from Charles Darwin's On the Origin of Species, and the album booklet included direct quotations from Darwin's writings. Recording sessions incorporated orchestral elements alongside traditional metal instrumentation, with narration by biologist Richard Dawkins appearing on the closing track. These elements were planned during the writing phase rather than added during production. Following the album's release, touring was conducted using arrangements prepared during recording, minimizing changes between studio and stage versions. After the completion of the touring cycle, work on new material began without changes to the lineup or production approach. In 2020, Nightwish released Human Nature, a double album structured in two distinct parts. The first disc consisted of conventional metal compositions, while the second was an orchestral work performed without guitars, bass, or drums. The orchestral portion was written as a continuous piece rather than separate tracks, requiring coordination with full orchestra and conductor during recording. During this period,
And choir.
Holopainen continued writing independently, separating composition from rehearsal and performance planning. Studio work followed predefined arrangements, allowing recording sessions to proceed without structural revision. The album's release coincided with global touring restrictions, which resulted in the cancellation of planned live performances for the material. After touring resumed, Nightwish returned to live performances using adapted arrangements for the material that had not previously been performed on stage. No changes were made to the lineup or writing structure during this phase. In 2024, the band released Yesterwind, writing for
What is he talking about? So he didn't even mention Marco. What do you mean there was no, like, wait, is that what he said? That there was no.
phase. In 2024, the band released not previously been performed on stage. No changes were made to the lineup or writing structure during this phase.
Yes, there was. Marco left right after Human Nature was released, and then came Jukka Koskinen. So I don't know what he's talking about. Oh my lord, this only has like less than a minute left. There's really so much more to the story.
In 2024, the band released Yesterwind. Writing for the album followed the same method used for the two previous releases, with compositions completed before studio sessions began. The album continued the use of orchestral arrangements integrated directly into the writing process, rather than treated as supplementary layers. By the time of this release, Holopainen had completed multiple consecutive albums using the same production model. Each project moved through writing, orchestration, recording, and release without structural interruption. As of the mid-2020s, work on future material continued within this established framework, with no announced changes to lineup or creative roles.
Well, there you go. I stopped it right at the last second of this documentary. Now, because this was a documentary on Tuomas, and not necessarily just Nightwish. I mean, the title says the brain behind Nightwish, so obviously Nightwish was going to be the focal part of Tuomas's art, right? But you know, he also writes and composes for Ari. It's if I'm not mistaken, it's a little bit more of a folk element band. I guess you guys can correct me if that's incorrect. I haven't done any reactions to that. I haven't listened to any of Ari in all these years. I just haven't. But Troy is in that. His wife is in that. So the three of them are in that together. I'm not quite sure who else is part of that. So he never brought any of that out. Obviously, there was a few incorrect things that were stated there, but that's why I had to pause it and just add a little bit of correction there, especially with some of the pronunciations and stuff. But you know, if we're talking about like Tuomas's brain, like in the documentary or in this documentary that was put together, you didn't really delve into the brain of Tuomas's lyricism, metaphors, things of that nature. You know, in a lot of his songs, he uses a lot of imagery of the ocean, of water. He uses a lot of imagery of a dead boy. He always calls himself the dead boy. So, you know, there's the song Dead Boy's Poem. We all know that that is Tuomas's letter that he wrote of like when he goes away. This is how he wants to be remembered. It's like his goodbye letter, or like the lyric says, it's a love letter to nobody. You know, he wants to say he's sorry to all the people that he's loved, and he wants, I don't know, even give some kind of a message even to those that you know, didn't treat him so well. But one of the most personal lyrics that he has written. But I would say between Dead Boy's poem and The Poet and the Pendulum. So if we're going to talk about the brain behind Nightwish, he didn't really touch on that aspect of Tuomas's brain. His lyrics, that's all coming from Tuomas. And I think the documentary fell flat because it didn't touch on any of that, right? Um, but I don't want to say fell flat. Let me retract what I just said, because he did get into like some of the things like Tuomas when he came over to America as an exchange student and took some classes and learned about like cinematic music and things of that nature, and how eventually he would incorporate that into this symphonic metal sound. Um, so I don't want to say fell flat, but I'm just saying it definitely left a gap in there. It by not touching on that, I think the documentary would have been a little better if it would have touched on Tuomas's songwriting, the lyricism and the metaphors and everything that usually comes out of his mind and onto the paper, right? And then into our ears. So that would have been nice. Um, he did mention the classical piece that is the second disc on the Human Nature album, and that it's all orchestral, but he didn't get into any detail on it other than it's just an orchestral piece. He didn't really get into, the three masterpiece compositions that he wrote for Nightwish, one in each era of the singers. So Ghost Love Score with Tarja, Poet and the Pendulum with Annette, and then The Greatest Show on Earth with Floor. So he didn't really delve into the brain of Tuomas with those compositions. I think the documentary would have been elevated if he would have touched on those. Um, but I would say maybe this should have been entitled or titled "The History of Tuomas Holopainen," the man behind Nightwish. You know what I mean? Like, because we really didn't delve into his brain. We delved a little bit into his history. So those are my thoughts. This is my reaction. Nightwish Army, Floor Worlders. Um, what do you think of this documentary? Did you watch it? Well, obviously you watched it along with me if you're watching this video. So, what did you think? Do you disagree with anything that I said, which is totally fine? Please leave your opinions down below. Just make sure that they're kind and constructive. We can completely have different opinions. There's nothing wrong with that. And let's not do the comparisons of singers down below or downgrade any of the past members. They all played a part. We can all have our favorites, but let's just, you know what I mean? Let's just be civil and grown adults when it comes to it. This is about music. It's nothing more serious than that. It's music, man. So thank you, everybody, for watching this along with me. I'm going to have the link to the original video in the description. I'm going to have Nightwish's socials and all of their information in the description so you can go follow them. It's all about supporting the band. If you like this video and reaction, then I hope that you will press like, subscribe to the channel, press the notification bell so you'll be notified when I upload something, because YouTube's algorithm has gone shot to where. Also, if you have an option to hype the video, share the video, and if you'd like to support the band, I just said support the band. If you want to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee over here, or in a comment down below, you're going to see a link to PayPal and buy me a coffee link if you don't want to use the QR code over here. You can also leave a super thanks in the comment section if you'd like to support the channel in that way as well. And in the description will be all of my socials, and most importantly will be my Patreon link over there. I do have like the full reaction to the Floor Jansen Wacken Open Air concert over there. And I have a full Tarja Act 2 reaction to that full concert on my Patreon as well, as an exclusive video. And there's going to be some more exclusive Nightwish and Nightwish related stuff that's going to go over there. So, but anyways, Thank you for hanging out with me during this reaction, and I'll catch you in the next one.